And today we're talking about the first 3 weeks of the ALP, who won the federal election in May 2022. And they've virtually put on their roller skates, haven't they, Sue, over the past 3 weeks?
They sure have.
Now, just a very quick update that came this morning, later this afternoon after we did the original live, which we had a few technical issues with. And our Brains Trust on the Fluton platform are watching this live to make sure that things go well. But just to bring you up to date with the federal seat of Gilmore, which is the federal seat that I'm in, here on the south coast of New South Wales. The Australian Electoral Commission today was going to formally announce that Fiona Phillips, the Labor MP, had won the seat of Gilmore. However, they have been unable to do that at this stage because Andrew Constance, the Liberal member, has requested a recount. So, yeah, the present that keeps on giving, as you put it, Sue, from the LNP.
Yeah.
So we have to wait, hopefully not another 3 weeks for that.
Just as well we have 76 seats in hand, because it could be right up until the next election until we know the results of this one.
Well, yeah, at the rate this is going.
Yes.
Fiona was nicknamed by Albo 77, which more than gave the ALP a majority in the House of Reps. And so now we're back in limbo. Now, admittedly, she won by just over 370 odd seats, I think it was. 300 votes, rather. But a win is a win is a win.
Exactly. Yeah, and look, if we have to go through that process again to satisfy Mr. Constance's,
We'll just say that it's never...
So be it.
Well, let's put it this way. The Electoral Commission are reviewing his request. They might turn around and say no. She's won, fair and square. Get over it, move on.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing, or they might do a recount. But, so we're just up and up. I was a little bit disappointed with Andrew, but I can understand from his point of view, he doesn't get a parliamentarian's salary if he doesn't.
Yeah, well, true that too,
if he doesn't win.
We'll have to work harder for next time round.
Absolutely. But one of the things that I'd like to talk to you about and like to discuss is Albo's promise in the election campaign that no one would be left behind.
Yeah.
Now, if we take into account that gas and electricity prices are going through the roof, and we take in petrol prices are still going through the roof despite the half in the excise tax, groceries are going through the roof, rentals were going through the roof, will even more go through the roof because now investors or landlords are saying, well, because of the interest rates going up, we need to put up the rents yet again.
Yeah.
So consequently, how could people not be left behind, particularly those who are on a low incomes or actually on a Centrelink benefit?
Well, they are the people that are being hit the hardest. Those families and individuals who are reliant on a Centrelink payment for their livelihood, or the low income earning families. They are being hit the hardest. And whilst I have no solutions for this, I do believe that our current government and all their ministers are reviewing every little detail to try and find a way to relieve some of that pressure other than going and asking for extra money to be made available to get people through these difficult times. I know they've made a number of savings in lots of different areas, but is that enough? I'm not sure. Um, you know, it breaks my heart to think that the Australian people could have had some forewarning of this, and perhaps have maybe been able to budget to be better able to absorb this, because there's a whole month that the previous government knew about these coming increases in our power, and actually suppressed that from the Australian public, and then it became knowledge after the election, sort of throwing Labor under the bus. I'm confident that if there is a way that they can find to alleviate the current pressure that people are under, those that we just spoke of, then they will do that. And I, they're all working their butts off, and it's sit back and watch this space, basically. But in terms of that promise, I think that is a longer term thing. No one held back, no one left behind. Um, and I think that will come to fruition over time. They inherited a set of books that are just beyond anybody's expectations of bad, and they have to deal with that as the new government. So, and they will. And yeah.
Yes, and the thing that gets me is that they've been left behind by the LNP for years,
Yeah.
and now we've got all these crises basically happening, which are not of ALP doing, although people will want to blame ALP.
Yeah.
They've only been in government for 3 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
hello, groceries were going up during the campaign.
Yeah.
Um,
Cost of living was a
cost
big
of living was a big issue for the election.
Yeah.
I think they're going to really have to drag people up by the bootstraps. Now, Jim Chalmers, the treasurer, has already ruled out giving um, financial supplements,
Yeah.
and that people have to wait until the federal budget.
Muted for October.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a long space of time between now and then, though, isn't it? And it's that period that's going to be really taxing on the people that we just spoke about, who are not in a position to absorb these increases. Let's face it, we have 105,000 homeless people as of last month. That's going to continue to rise with these continued increases. Gosh, I wish I had a magic wand. I can just, but
I think the problem is that they're being very careful, which is understandable. The problem is that if they inject cash into the economy at this stage, from what I understand from listening to the commentary, it could actually exacerbate the actual inflation as it is. So that's also the problem there. The problem is that people have got to get through winter, and Jim and his offside are not bringing down the federal budget, or they want to do a federal budget in October, which is actually in our spring.
Yeah.
At springtime. So consequently, people and I don't know about where you are in Tassie. I would imagine you're pretty cold down your way, because I know we're pretty cold my way.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am wearing layers upon layers. We are definitely cold, and we've just had a pretty severe cold snap this long weekend just passed. So yeah, and look, in best of winters, there are people that are suffering and having to choose between medication, heating, food, and but this year, with what's currently going on, that is a real choice for so many more people.
Yeah,
And that is, it's quite scary to think how many of our people are making those choices on a daily basis.
yeah,
It hurts.
yeah. It it is. It's absolutely what you say. It's going to hurt them big time,
Yeah.
and this is, something. Um, and there's no easy fix, and we know there's no easy fix. Jim Chalmers has been warning since about day 3 that he was from when he was sworn in, that the budget was worse than what they expected. But then
Yeah.
every incoming government says that. But, let's just say, I'm not saying it's not worse. I'm just saying that every incoming government, that is the stock line. And
It
he's
is.
trying to downplay people's expectations to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I just personally can't see how they're going to be able to marry up the everything. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And they definitely have a challenge ahead of them. But,
Yeah.
we have some pretty smart people there at the minute. And
Mm.
I know they've been um, um, flat chat talking to industry, particularly Chris Bowen, talking to people, states leaders, and trying to come up with solutions or ways to reduce the costs of the power hikes, and
Mm.
trying to find ways to do this. And they're doing this across the board. Jim Chalmers is talking to people as treasurer across the board, trying to navigate his way through that, as is Katie Gallagher and the rest of the guys. They're all, from the day they were sworn in, they were feet on the ground and they were running. There was,
Absolutely. And
to
one,
try and get things going. They've just, like you said earlier, it's a perfect storm, and it's battened down the hatches, and you know, communities help each other through this, and we will get through this and be a stronger, more resilient, and a better nation.
and maybe it also needs that more sense of community, of
Mm.
neighbours looking after neighbours. Do you have enough blankets? How
Yes.
about, we share our heating, come over and have a cuppa and spend an hour or
Yeah.
so with us with the
Yeah.
heater on, and we'll come over and share an hour, a cuppa with you with the heater on, so that the costs are, neighbours upon neighbours helping each other
Yeah.
to get through this. I'm not saying live in somebody else's home to get
Right.
free electricity or heating, but I am saying, if you can, help your neighbour out.
Yeah.
Now Sue and I live in totally different areas of the country, so it's not as if I can go to Susan's home, um, and share the warmth of her home and her hospitality, and with her and her family, or that she can come to my home and share the warmth of my home and
Yeah.
my hospitality.
Yeah.
But we can do it for our neighbours. Check out particularly check out elderly people
Yes.
who are older, who, just to make sure that they are warm, they are rugged up. If it
Well,
means
the thing with
if it means a trip down to the local op shop to get a couple of blankets for them,
Yeah.
hey, please do it, because
Yeah.
we need to look after each other. We can't rely on the government to give us handout after handout. I
Yeah.
understand that. You know what I mean?
We through the pandemic, we got closer, because there were so many people that were locked down, that were lonely, and they were encouraged, others were encouraged to keep in touch, ring up and say, hey, are you okay over there?
Yeah.
Can't come over to visit, but hey, I wanted to check on you. And I think that's something that we need to continue on. Whilst we're not locked down, we can physically visit our neighbour, our elderly neighbour, or the single parent that's got a few kids that are really battling, or the family that's not earning the big bucks and are struggling to pay the rent and feed the kids and whatever. We can extend at kindness. Kindness costs us nothing.
Mm,
Just your time, and that's how we get through
mm.
these situations. Don't leave each other behind, I guess.
Yes, I think that's right. I think we're going to have to, do what we did through COVID, neighbour looking after neighbour,
Yeah,
neighbour checking on neighbours, checking
yeah.
on our elderly neighbours. And um, mm, okay, now they're having the same problem that your visual is not visible, but your audio is. So they're still the team is checking that. So bear
Okay.
with us, guys. We're still with the Brains Trust of Fluton, and that. So we'll see how it goes. Now,
Well, no one can see me munching then.
that's true. That's very true, and they're checking it. Um, the other thing to think of is that apart from us helping each other, because we can't rely on the government. And you know, I'm not saying give money to your neighbours. What I am saying is look out for them. See
Mm,
that, make sure they're okay. Make sure that even if they can't put the heater on because of the cost, that they've got enough warm blankets to wrap themselves in. Uh,
yeah,
that costs nothing to do that.
no. And if you're like me, when I cook, I tend to cook for a bloody army, excuse my language.
Yep.
But if you make a big pot of soup and you're not going to eat it all, you can always take a bowl across to your elderly neighbour.
That's right. And you can still freeze the rest. So it's not as
You
if
can,
you're going
exactly.
to,
Mm,
really do without. So, and the other thing that I like to talk about is that Albo and Penny Wong have really acquitted themselves well on the international stage.
hmm
They've been to the whatever that quad meeting was. Um,
Yep.
And then the LNP complained that they were out of the country so much and there's crises at home, and he said he'd hold a hose, like, go
Well,
figure.
you know what? At least they weren't in Hawaii sipping cocktails while the country was in a crisis.
Exactly. And Richard Marles has been in Singapore and talking to his Chinese counterpart.
hmm
Um, the ALP have now, um, they're in the final stages of finalising the settlement with the French.
Yeah. Look, these relationships are so important to our country and to our future going forward. And it was a priority to particularly in the Pacific. These are our neighbours, and we need to work together as collectively. And the French have been our allies and our friends
Hmm.
for a very, very long time. And to have had that relationship tarnished as it was by the cancellation of that contract in the manner that it was done, really hurt our relations with that country. And that Albo has been able to not only resolve the financial side of that, but to then go forward and work towards strengthening those relations and building trust again. I think says a lot about him and the manner in which he carries himself. You know, that's something that he's done within his own party. He's known for bringing people together, for
Mm,
working through things, and it's now doing it on a global stage. And
mm, mm,
we're doing okay there.
mm, mm. Yes, and that's the thing. The other thing about that is, LNP back to their divisive nature again. It obviously is in their DNA, Susan. They
It
can't
is
help
in
but
their
be.
DNA. They can't work cooperatively on anything.
No, well, what their big complaint now is that Labor paid too much in exit fees to the French company, um, and they reckon they would have done a better deal. Well, what they didn't put up before the election or during the election what the
No,
deal was.
no,
They reckon,
and it was looking at costing us 5.5 billion.
yeah,
We've saved just under $2 billion on that little disaster. Thank you, Elbow, for that.
yeah,
Um, the LNP are just going to keep doing this. They're going to keep being divisive. They're going to throw spanner in the works at every opportunity. Because let's face it, the LNP works for the LNP,
yeah,
not for the betterment of this country.
yeah,
And we're in the state we're in because of that ethic.
yeah.
So it speaks for itself. I mean, I've heard some, really terrible things in reference to Penny Wong and Richard Marles as to why the Chinese are speaking to them. That whole Manchurian thing has raised its ugly head again. I just think that is in poor taste. It is a slur, and grow up. Just grow up.
It's just gobsmacking how divisive they really are.
Yeah,
And even Peter Dutton coming out with his article about the submarines in America have really put the Quad partners and the UK and sorry, the UK and the USA offside.
yeah,
You know, uh, he says he wants to lead a different government, a different opposition. Well, mate, you're certainly not showing it at the moment.
no,
Because is
it's
that all you
same
can
old.
whinge about and release what you reckon was on the public record, which is even all the commentators are saying this, and also UK and USA are saying, don't know about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just so divisive,
Hmm.
and it's
But
it's
that's the nature of the beast with the LNP. That is what they do. They character assassinate the opposition to
yeah,
discredit and whatever,
yeah,
so that that's leverage for them.
yeah,
I think Australia at the last election clearly stated that they're not happy with that kind of politics.
mm,
They're done with dirty deeds done dirt cheap.
yeah,
We want a country that works collaboratively.
yeah,
And once we have so many more independents and women and stuff that are making up our political arena today to what we had early in May.
mm,
And I think that's a sign for the future. We don't want to play bully boy tactics anymore. We want to go about building a strong, resilient, productive, healthy, happy country. That's what we want. That's what we voted for.
but we
And
want
put
people.
your bloody head in LNP or join the party properly.
Well, the thing is that Australians, particularly with the Teal independence, has said apart from transparency, cost of living, ICAC, etc., they want the politicians to actually debate. Getting on the 6 o'clock news and saying, "Oh, it was public information," that's a load of BS. You know that that's divisiveness. He didn't have.
Yeah.
He's stirring the pot, trying to push the Richard Marles as the defence minister into a corner. Now,
Yeah.
hopefully, Richard Marles is smart enough, which I think he is a smart man, to say, "Bugger off, Peter Dutton."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, we're here now,
where
and
the
this is how
adults are
we
in
do it.
charge. We
Yeah. Yeah.
don't give in to bully boy tactics.
No.
And if you're out to put a wrecking ball through the relationships, well, this is a fine way to friggin' do it. So go
Exactly.
get a life.
Yeah.
And if you want to debate, it's just like them saying, "Oh, let's have nuclear power." As Chris Bowen says, the most expensive form of energy around. And they're suddenly saying, "Let's have nuclear power." Well, they
Yeah.
had 9 years to bring in nuclear
Exactly.
power.
Exactly.
You know, like their great solution, as he says, you want to debate it, bring it on.
I mean, we're just not set up for that. I know it's used in other parts of the world, and look, in the long term, it is a cheaper form of power. I'm not going to dispute that. But the infrastructure that's required, we're nowhere there.
Well, it's going to take 10 years
No,
anyway.
we're not. And it's the amount that it's going to cost to set something like that up is far in excess of what it would be to go with the hydrogen and the solar and the wind and the water, in terms of renewables.
And the battery storage. It was interesting tonight on the news. I heard that Mark McGowan is his Christian
Yep,
name, Mark,
WA.
WA Premier, is basically saying that within X number of years, they'll be fully, coal will be phased out
Yep,
in WA.
yep,
And that. Now, one other thing I really want to quickly touch on before we go is the cashless debit card.
yep.
Last but not least.
Not least at all.
Definitely not least. Now, Labor had a platform coming into the election that they would scrap the cashless debit card.
Yeah,
Now, we do have to remember they've only been in government for 3 weeks.
yeah,
Hello, they've hit the ground running, and maybe they've set up too many expectations of what they can do so quickly, because they have done a lot quickly, done it
they have.
a hell of a lot quickly. But
Yeah. And with the cashless debit card, look, that, as we've spoken earlier, that's got a sunset clause in December. So prior to that, unless again we go into billions of dollars in costs to scrap it, I think that the easier way to get people off that between now and December would be to put in an opt-out clause.
yes, and we've
And
discussed this.
always said there was one, but if you tried to get out, well, you had no bloody hope, as we know.
Well, I
So
think
there was something in there that makes it easier for people to get out. Then by the time December comes around, we won't need to do any because they'll have no one on their books to argue the point with.
Well, I've wondered about this, and this is a question I think we should put to Justine Elliott as the Assistant Minister for Social Services, and hopefully we'll get an interview fairly shortly with Justine. Let's put it this way: the request has gone into her office, so we just have to kind of wait for a moment, knowing that she's fairly busy as well. But
they're all busy.
my thing is that I think an opt out, if people can be given a streamlined process to opt out, I no longer want to be on this card.
Yep.
End of story. That's enough information. They shouldn't
Yep.
have to say why. It's
No.
simply, I no longer want to be on this card. Bang,
Yep.
and get charge of their finances, because you know, December is still 6 months away
That's right.
for people to be living on this card, particularly in the current environment of living costs, cost
And
of
not
living.
only that, they're not even getting their payments through.
Properly, yes.
Yeah,
And
at this
Indu
point.
have been stuffing them around big time for the
Yeah.
last, particularly for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But
And
the
for
only
those
thing that I'm concerned about is whether there's some criteria embedded in the current legislation, which I haven't had a chance to really check. And Justine would know this because she'd be all over that legislation, as to whether they it was a policy decision in the opt out, which means that you just change the policy and
yeah,
then put the structures in place for people to opt out, or whether it was the criteria was part of the actual legislation, which
yeah,
would then require um,
a bill to
yes, it would have to be it would have to it would require the bill to either be modified or scrapped.
yeah,
Now, I think it's the most. I personally think it at this stage, without having with that rider in place, that I don't know whether the criteria opt out criteria is part of the legislation or not. It's the quickest way to get people off the card at the present time, but also not see the government having to pay into any sort of exit fees. In my view, they shouldn't get one more cent.
they've got enough, I dare
They've
say.
got enough.
And we want to ensure that people that do opt out, their accounts are closed.
Absolutely.
Accounts open, therefore getting more funds from the government to actually keep those accounts open. Isn't it $6,000 an account? I can't hear you now. This full moon is causing us some difficulties. How do I do that? Oh, shit. Oh, there's nothing on it, Desley. Am I? Oh, for far out. There's nothing on it. I can see the comments, but your chat will appear here, but there's nothing there. Yeah, I have nothing. Can you check the settings audio in your screen, please? It's on. It's on. What do you do with a drunken sailor? What do we do with a drunken sailor? Can you check the setting buttons? Click on it to be taken to the audio. Are you okay? Yeah, I did that before. Or the settings. Audio import. I don't know. What do you want me to do? Verbatim, 1080 webcam, microphone, communications, default microphone. That's what's in there at the minute. So